Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and this is the second video of C programming in which I'm going to talk about data types and operators, and we'll teach you something about variables as well. So let's get to it. These are the data types in C language. Data types are basically the types of data which you can store in C language, and you have to declare what data you are storing first. So these types are basically keywords which are reserved in C to represent the type of data. Like for example, this int over here is representing an integer type of data, and then there is character which represents one character, which means basically A, B, C. Char represents one character, and then you have this unsigned character, this unsigned int, unsigned this, long, too much to understand, blah blah blah. Just give me a second. This is the float, which basically means decimals. I like this 2.81111 something. These are decimal numbers. Use float. Then there's double. Then there's long double. Again, too much. So let's me explain you this stuff. Let's get over here first and see this. Integer in your memory, in your RAM, can take either 2 or 4 bytes. It depends on the computer you are using. Like for example, say mostly 32-bit machines store integer as 2 bytes, and some 64-bit machines store integer as 4 bytes. And say for example, Windows XP used to store integer as 2 bytes, or say Windows 10 used to store integer in 4 bytes. So it depends on the computer you're using, the operating system you're using. Let us say that the computer I am using stores integer in 2 bytes. Now see, the value range for 2 bytes is this. That means any integer in C can be of minimum value minus 32,768 to maximum value of 32,767. Say I want to work with a higher value. Say I want to work with, say, 42,000, or say 1 million. I want to work with, say, even worse, I want to work with, say, 4 million, or something very high value which this integer cannot support over here right now. So what these unsigned and unsigned long basically are integers which have more memory which can be stored, and hence giving us more values. Say for example, this integer can only store 2 bytes and have a maximum value of 32,767 and negative numbers as well. If I make it so that don't store negative numbers, just store positive numbers, I can store this value. I can store maximum of 65,535, which you will find is the sum of these two. Because obviously if I'm not storing negative numbers, these numbers change to positive, so I get this range. And then again, long and unsigned long is basically that whatever you do, store 4 bytes. So it will have the value of the 4 bytes of the integer, and unsigned long will have the double of this one. And so basically these are just the integers with more memory available to them. Generally integers are sufficient for most of the work, but if you are doing some calculation works, like say for example you are making a calculator, use unsigned long or use long, because it can store maximum possible value, so the user won't have the problem. And now let's get to decimals. Float is the basic type, like integer over here is basic type, int over here is basic type for integer. Float is basic type for decimals, and there's double and long double are basically unsigned long and long for decimals. So float takes 4 bytes. Here's the limit to it. It can have 6 decimal places, double have 15 decimal places, long double have 19 decimal places. Say for example, float minus 2.88. Oh, sorry, 999. That's 3 decimal places. 999. That's another 3. Now the limit exceeds. If I want to use more, I go to double. If I want to use even more, I use long double. So this is how pretty much the data types and selection of data type works. Now let's get to the variables. This is how you declare or say define a variable in C. What this statement means is that, hey computer, I am going to define a variable named x which has a type of integer. What this statement means is that, hey computer, I am going to declare a variable ABCD which is an integer and has 5 value. Now this is a perfectly fine variable example. It's just saying that computer declare a variable ABCD which has a data of integer. But if I write underscore before it, it will be faulty. It will throw me an error because you cannot have special characters or numbers at the start of the variable name. So the variable below 1ABCD will also throw me an error. So there's a proper convention which we use to define variables. The convention basically is nothing to learn or is nothing something which you have to keep in mind or something big. It's just basic understanding that we should keep our variables as much as self-explanatory as possible. Like for example, I want to store person's age. I can either say int a. But int a can be anything. It's not telling you anything. Like for example, if I have coded this and I just pass it on to you and you don't know what it's doing, then you will be confused that, hey, what does this a mean to do? What does it store? So we have to make our variables as much as self-explanatory as possible. So take this example again. I want to store a personage. I'll do it like this: person. Now from here on out there are two ways. I can either use a capital letter to say that these two words are different, or if I don't want to use capital letter, I can make use of underscore over here, which is basically representing a space. So person age is fine or person age is fine. You can do it whatever way you want. You can do either both ways. It's very much fine. As basic objective is to make your variable self-explanatory and easy to read. So that's how we do it. And then you can say if the person is aged 50, you can say it like this. Now obviously you can have person age 1, person age 2, or you can say person 1 age, person 2 age, but you cannot have like this: 1 person age, 2 person age. This will be wrong. So that's pretty much it about the variables. This is variable initialized, and one thing which you have to keep in mind in C language is that before you are using these variables, you have to declare them. And in C language, you have to declare them at the top of the function in which you are going to use the variable. I'm going to get that to the next video where you will see code about these. Now quickly jumping to the operators. As you can see, I have written this expression over here. I'll get to it. These are the operators in C language according to their precedence order. The higher the operator in the table, the higher is their precedence order. I'm just going to slowly scroll down so you can see all of them. And now I'm going to explain you the variables. These are the parentheses, which is this over here, highest precedence order. Anything inside the precedence will be anything inside the parentheses will be evaluated first, then outside to it. These are the plus plus, the minus minus operators, which basically means add one or subtract one. I'm going to get that to it on the coding video, next video. These are the multiplicative, which means multiply, divide, or show us the remainder of the division. This is the normal addition. This is the minus, the subtraction. This is the left shift and right shift, which means shift the binary and shift the binary representation of the value and then get the new value. This is the relational operator, which basically checks less than equal to, greater than or greater than equal to. This checks the equal to, which means if the values are equal or not. This checks if the values are not equal. This is the bitwise AND, which works as the AND gate. This is the bitwise XOR, which works as the XOR gate. This is the bitwise OR, which works as the OR gate. OR gate basically means, say for example, you have two values, 0, 0, or 0 1 or 1 1. If any of those two values is 1, it will output 1. If two values are same, over here, if two values are same, it will give 0. And over here, if both the values is 1, it will give 1, otherwise 0. Logical AND, logical OR, in this conditional, these three, and these relational and equality operators, we are going to use in them if else, so I'm going to talk about them over there. This is the assignment operator, which means equal to plus equal to. I'm going to get that to the coding video. And then there's comma, which has the lowest priority. So that's pretty much it for today's video. I'm just gonna quickly pull down a summary. These are the data types. They have proper range, or they have proper storage values and range to them. If you want to use higher range, you have to use the higher level of that variable, which is over here, data type over here. This is the float. Float is used to store decimals, and this is the higher values of the to store decimal numbers, basically the larger data types. This is how you declare a variable. This means x named variable is declared, which has type of integer. If I write float x, this means it will make the x value as a decimal number. And if I write char x, it means that the x will be as a character. This is how you assign the values to the variable. You have to follow a proper convention to make your variables as much as self-explanatory as possible. Variables cannot start with special characters or numbers. These are the operators in their precedence orders. Parentheses is evaluated first, then the unary operators, which mean operators which only take one operands. Operand is basically the plus is an operator, y is an operand, and x is an operand. This is the multiplication, then the addition subtraction is done, then the shifting, then the relational, bitwise AND, or these are the basically operators in the precedence order. I've pretty much explained everything about the operators and variables and data types. If you don't get anything right now, don't worry, wait for the next video. The next video is going to be coding using what I have explained you right now, so it will be in more depth and detail. Thanks for watching. Goodbye, guys.